have before. Losing all confidence is a consequence of my behavior.
Recorded live from the Engine Room in Broad Ripple, this is the Voices of Indy podcast hosted by Josh Gillespie. Voices of Indy is a show dedicated to giving you the opportunity to know the musical, visual, and theatrical arts of Indianapolis, Indiana. This week's guest is Audrey Coy. She performs under the name Awetree. Awetree is a uke-centric project with a heavy focus on lyrical stylings influenced by anti-folk storytelling and accessible pop melody. Her music is the personification of her anxieties, revolving around her interpersonal relationships with messages of friendship and optimism. Audrey, thank you for being on the show this week.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on. You bring a different style of music than I think we've had on this show before. And there is kind of a popularity right now with the ukulele and a lot of different kinds of music. What got you into the ukulele? And I'm jumping ahead first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know Audrey, and then we can get to know your music better.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, a big part of getting to know me is that I play ukulele, for sure.
Yeah.
I did actually start off, though, more art-oriented, like visual arts.
Okay, yeah.
That was more the trajectory of my life up until college. Like, I was going to Heron School of Art and Design for a little bit, where I met my friend Kara, who also played ukulele, and we didn't have any like stage experience or anything. We were both very awkward and uncomfortable, and that's kind of why we became friends. And then we just started this project called Ugly Friend.
Oh.
And it was just dueling ukes, and so we...
I gotta dig it, all right?
Yeah, so it was like kind of, I don't know, that was my way into the music community, was kind of through art.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And you went to the Heron Art School?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're on the IPUI campus.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't finish, but...
Oh, okay, no, but still,
you
you had the experience there, and that's cool, and that really kind of got you into playing ukulele more and performing with it.
I was actually really... So when I was, like, 13, I wanted a guitar. I think that's like most people, if they like music, when they're 13.
Yeah, no, exactly. Guitar is the way to go.
And it was so cumbersome, and I think like I had the classic, the first time I was trying to like restring it, a string snapped and hit me in the face, and I was like, I'm done with this. And it was actually when I was like junior high, there was this YouTuber called Julia Nunes. She got big in like 2008 playing ukulele covers, and they were just covers of any song. Like, it wasn't like, I think I'd always thought of ukulele as being a specific type of sound that had to do certain things, but she just would do any cover. She would do like Weezer, Destiny's Child.
Oh, fun!
Do all sorts of covers, and I was like, that is something I can hold a lot easier. Yeah. And maybe I'll give that a shot. So that's kind of when, like, the ukulele in particular became my thing, I guess.
Very cool, very cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about the writing process as you go about writing on the ukulele. You say that you kind of take some anti-folk. What does that mean?
Honestly, I have a hard time like figuring out what genre a lot of stuff fits into. And one of my bigger influences is Regina Spektor.
Yes.
And she, I think, is like part of her many identities as far as genre is definitely anti-folk. So I feel like I just kind of like embodied that for my own.
Okay, no, that's so cool. No, I mean, to find an artist that you can relate to, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's the vibe I'm feeling.
Yeah, she's not afraid to be weird. I think that's like one of my biggest takeaways, is that she just doesn't really follow any specific rules, but she is classically trained, so that's awesome as well. But yeah, so I get a lot of my inspiration from how she writes songs, and yeah, a lot of my stuff is just pretty specific stories that I retell in a way that somehow does make people relate to the feeling I'm trying to get across, and I really enjoy that part.
So how long have you been writing on the ukulele?
So I wrote my first song. I did this at like a Sam Ash open mic.
Oh, really?
And it was in like, I think it was like 2015.
Okay.
So, yeah, the very first song I ever wrote, I was, like, so proud of it that I ended up playing it out at open mics, and then it ended up on my, like, very first EP.
Oh, so cool.
I guess maybe I'm a little too sacred with all of my songs. I'm like, they're all special and all belong out there.
It's seriously, it's like for some musicians, their songs are their children. And it's like, someone like, I've asked some people like, what are your favorite songs? And be like, I can't choose.
Oh, yeah, I definitely feel that way. 'Cause that's, like, even today with, like, picking songs, I'm very particular about knowing exactly what songs I'm going to play for every set. Mm-hmm. And I, like, practice them in the order to kind of figure out the kind of feeling, like, emotional roller coaster I'm taking myself on.
Sure,
and
yeah.
it feels like picking 2 of my kids out for, like, picture day to come and, like, give them some airtime today. I'm like, okay, this is where we're going.
No, that's funny. No, I like that. That's the way that you approach that. I mean, the songs, when we write, it feels like we're really kind of exposing ourselves. And, yeah, you're trying to set that mood when you're putting together that set list. So I totally get that. How has it gone from? So you started, doing the open mic in 2015. When did you record your first album?
I think
or EP, I should say.
Yeah, I released, like, I guess it's like self-titled. I just called it Audrey. Mm-hmm. I think that came out in February of 2016. So pretty quick turnaround.
That was a quick turnaround.
It's weird to think. I don't know. I am a very I consider myself to be ambitious as far as, like, I also am very driven by, I'm intuition driven, I guess. So that when I found music as a way to, like, communicate and express myself, I was just ready to hit the ground running. I was just always chasing kind of that feeling of, like, playing my first open mic. And I mean, that first song that I wrote, it was really inspired by moving out of my hometown and kind of, like, having to branch out and make new friends. And, like, capturing that was kind of like, I don't know, a weird high that after that I just kept writing. I just feel like I can write about anything. Like, I can take a walk and write, and just come up with, like, so many different songs and ideas. So I guess it doesn't super surprise me that I just, like, quickly just put out, like, 4 songs because I had them. As soon as I started writing, I just kept writing.
So what is the writing process like for you? I know for me, it's like, for me, I always have the tune come first before I have the words. What's it like for you?
It's interesting. It's most of the time I'm like taking a walk, and, like, the pace that I'm going, I get a phrase stuck in my head.
Oh,
like, there's one song, there's, like, a couple of songs I can think of because I'll still get the phrase stuck in my head because it's stuck that much. And, like, so from there, I kind of have to just wait. Like, I have to sit on it for a while. Like, I'll record it and, like, over, like, voice memos on my phone. And get the lyrics so that I have it and everything. But then it's just, like, this perfect timing with when I have a chance to sit and, like, noodle on my uke, and then I just kind of find the melody, which is really, it's weird to explain because it doesn't feel that difficult, but it sounds a lot harder than it is.
No. I totally get what you're saying.
Sometimes you have to, like, finagle the melody you already have to fit something, but, like, for the most part, it just kind of magically happens.
No, I like that. That's how we have to kind of approach things. I mean, are you kind of a prolific writer? Do you write a whole bunch, like, all at once, or do you see it kind of going out over time so that you have enough to fill an EP or an album?
I feel like what happens is I have a couple of songs, and then I'm not necessarily sure where they're going, but, like, it'll take just one particular song that I'm maybe the most emotional about, or it's the most, like, cathartic as far as what I'm going through, that kind of makes me realize, like, oh, these are all kind of about the same thing. Like, for Order of Importance, that was the first full-length album that I put out. That was 10 songs, and some of them, like, 2 of them I think were written when I was still playing music with Kara, like, maybe even intended for Ugly Friend, but then when I started doing stuff by myself, like, so those are, like, years old, but they have the same feeling and energy of like what I was going through, because it's like about a breakup and like trying to come back from that. So like some of those songs really did still fit with that vibe, and I did really want to get some of the older songs out that had been sitting, but so I guess it's kind of a combination. Like a few of them I'm like, these are all from the same time, but we got to bring these other ones in with them, I guess.
No, that's cool. I mean, it's like, how many albums, EPs and singles like do you have out right now?
I have 2 EPs and an album. So like the first one I put out was like 4 songs, and I don't really play any of those songs anymore, except sometimes I'll play for like nostalgia. The first song I ever wrote is called Faultless Crime. Like if my friends that are that I kind of wrote the song about are in town, then I'll play it like for them. But
gotcha, yeah.
Then I had Kindergarten Eyes, that was from 2018, and then Order of Importance from last year. And I've got, right now I'm working on an EP that's going to be 5 songs, and I already have some ideas for another album, which has never happened to me before, hitting like multiple things at once, which I'm kind of glad, because a lot of my friends, I feel like, just are working on so many things at the same time. I don't know how people do it.
I don't, well, that's the kind of the funny thing. I've never experienced that until now. Like, I'm in the process of recording my second album, but I've also been writing a third, and like, I feel like I'm almost done with it in terms of like content, and like, and both albums are incredibly different in terms of content and focus. And it seems like the way that you write, I feel like we're kind of on a similar wavelength in terms of, like, you have a concept. Now, you're not writing a concept album, but you have like a theme that seems to be running through the feel of that particular project that you're working on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what I mean, so you've kind of we said at the top of the show that you kind of go from like the interpersonal thing and focusing on friendship and companionship and stuff like that. Do you find those themes as kind of something that goes from album to album, or are you, or what are the themes that you think that you're focusing on with the one that you're about to wrap up?
This one's a little different, because everything prior has been definitely like my form of communicating certain things that are hard for me to talk about, for sure. So I think I still have that with what I'm working on now. It is a little more concept-y, as far as like in the past I haven't had a lot of visual elements to go alongside, just sort of like make a world of something, which is something I now feel like I can take the time and want to do now that I have enough stuff out for people to already find. So that's, I guess, the main difference with what I'm working on now, is it is a touch more concept. They're actually going to be, it's like going to be called Feast Alone, Songs About Gods, and it's like with the personification of my anxieties kind of theme. It's like taking the idea of like pretending I am like some sort of like myth god person, and like what sort of anxieties they would have if they were like in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's more so still my feelings, but it has that little bit of like I can be kind of detached and go a different place with it if I want to.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Thanks.
All right, no, you're welcome. I mean, I find that just the way that people write and the way that they kind of write about what they're feeling, like, I find that a lot of musicians struggle with, some kind of anxiety or depression or something that has really informed their writing. And it's neat to see that, like, you're kind of creating these characters and using those characters as an outlet for exploring these spaces. That's fascinating.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm very anxiety driven. It's interesting. I've decided that I'm going to think of like my anxiety as just a younger version of myself that just doesn't realize that I have grown and can like adapt and have adapted to situations. So like sometimes when I'm anxious, I just kind of tune in and I'm like, hey, don't worry, we've gone through some things now, and we know what we're doing, and everything's gonna be fine. And I feel like that has definitely helped me be able to make something of it, you know?
Yeah. So do you get filled with anxiety when you write? Like when it does, is it a way to, like, I guess, does it bring back those feelings like when you're in the process of writing, or does the writing let you kind of exercise those demons to a certain degree?
Oh, definitely the latter. I feel like, I mean, even when I wrote my first song, I feel like I was trying to say something to a few people, and then when I played it for them and they got it, I was like, so I don't have to have a conversation I don't want to have, you know? Like, so it was really freeing because it did seem like that was my way of communicating. Like, I'm not actually bad at talking, it's just sometimes song form is better for me.
No, sure. Okay. So my background is in communications.
Nice.
And I've worked as like a department head for communications and doing all these things. And yet when it came to like telling my story, expressing myself, I could only do it via song. Like it's and it took a long time to get to that point. Honestly, like when I finally found my voice, I had to be actually out of the world of communications to do that.
That's wild. I do think it's like because doing something as a profession is kind of a character in its own way. So it's easier to kind of detach and not be like, I'm not speaking really on behalf of me. I'm speaking on behalf of like a company or something.
No, exactly. So, well, and we'll get down to the nitty gritty. I worked in the world of politics and in government. So I was definitely talking in someone else's voice. And I like the way that you portray it as a character. And I've never thought of it that way, but all of a sudden, I mean, just in that brief moment when you said that, I was like, that's what it was.
It's even me. I mean, I work retail, and like I feel like even though I really enjoy like my job and stuff, I do feel like I have to turn on this version of myself for sure. And then I'm really not nervous like when I'm doing that, and I feel like I'm kind of leaning into something. But then, man, it surprises me that I'm as far into like playing shows as I am, because I just when I first started, I would get the worst panic attacks before getting on stage, to a point where I was like, I'm never doing this again. But then you get off stage and you're like, that was awesome.
Do you find that you're creating a character for yourself on stage, or you feel like you're finally able to be yourself on stage?
Honestly, yeah, that, like, it's crazy, because even, I mean, people call me Tree or Awetree now. It's like, I almost, like, that became me, and it was really almost a relief. And now I feel like I'm more confident, because I'm like, people enjoy just me being myself. Like, the songs that I perform are so honest, and I put so much care and effort into how like I curate it, so like when people really get it and accept it, it just makes me feel like I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to be myself, and people keep inviting me back, so it's fine.
So a couple questions that I have for you that kind of, one of them I feel like I probably should have already addressed. And so we'll get to that first. So your name is Audrey.
Yes.
But you go by musically as Awetree. Where did that come from?
Honestly, my two best friends from high school, we were Audrey, Teddy, and Caitlin, and we just gave each other like goofy nicknames, Awetree, Tootie, and Cutelin. And it was my Instagram handle. And then like when Kara moved back to like the Elkhart and we weren't doing Ugly Friend anymore, and I still really wanted to perform, I was like, don't overthink it. I don't really, it's weird. I used to get a lot of anxiety like hearing my name. I don't know if it's like when you think your mom's yelling at you or something, So like when I hear Audrey, I'm just like, oh God. So like I want something a little bit not my name, but still kind of my name. That it really just came from like my friends in high school, and then my Instagram handle, and that's
Hey, that works. No, sometimes that's this is not typically music that I listen to at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard a song of hers, but I know that like Charlie XCX.
Yeah.
Like that's her. That was like her MSN name.
Yeah.
And we're going back here when we're talking about MSN. But that was like as she was a kid, that was like her screen name, and so that just kind of became her on stage persona as well.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize that. I feel like I don't know. I really like Charlie XCX, so it's cool that we have that in common.
Yeah. No. It's kind of interesting how, people will just be like, well, this works here. Why wouldn't it work there?
And to be honest, I didn't really want, like, it's so hard. I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, it's so hard, but like sometimes it's difficult as a solo artist to get booked for stuff, there's a very specific. It's wild because like when I first started and I barely had any material, I was getting booked for those like 2-hour coffee shop gigs.
Oh,
you know
boy.
What I mean?
Oh,
so
my
like
goodness.
There's that. So you kind of you fall into that sometimes, or you're doing a lot of open mics or very specific things, and then you want to play bigger gigs, and they're like, I don't know. Honestly, for a while, I could just say Awetree was a band, and then just show up by myself.
Sure. Yeah.
But now I do have sometimes have a band, so that's fine. But yeah, I kind of liked that aspect of like mystery. Like, is this gonna be a band? Is this just one person?
So when you perform, you say you have a band sometimes. I guess so. What is a show like when you go to see Audrey? If the difference between Audrey the solo artist and Audrey the band artist?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely higher energy. Like, I feel like when I play, I've been very fortunate to like, even though I was like complaining that it's sometimes hard to get solo gigs, I got booked a lot like at like the Hoosier Dome and stuff. It's almost like an on-call opener.
Really?
Because I was easy setup.
I
just come in and plug in and then I'm ready. So I feel like that was a lot. And those shows would be kind of fun because there'd be like heavier bands, and sometimes I wouldn't always open. I'd be like sandwiched in between, and people really liked it because they could like sit almost like story time. You're like, okay, taking a little bit of a breather and kind of falling into more of like a therapy, moving, like that sort of thing. And so that's kind of my solo vibe. But then with a band, it's a lot more like be a little dancier, I guess. And I still make sure I have time where I typically like kick them off stage for 2 songs so I can have like my moment by myself.
Sure.
And then like finish it out strong again. So I really enjoy playing, like the energy of playing with a band, because like there's just that moment when you're all like, we don't do like in-ears or like backtracks or anything, but that magic when you all just hit at the same time, and it just feels so good.
Like you can feel it in your body when you...
Yes.
I know that, yes.
It's so wild. And because I was really apprehensive to have a band, and people like recommend it, or people are like, I hear drums in your stuff, you should try this, which I really appreciate. And I love hearing other people, because like I can hear a million things. I can hear a million things going on in my own song in my head as well, so it doesn't like offend me. But I don't know, sometimes I just want like just a little bit of added stuff.
Sure. Have you ever seen that movie, and I completely forget the name of it, but it's a music movie, and it has Keira Knightley and the guy who plays the Incredible Hulk. And like, he's a drunk, he had an indie record label, and he sees her performing at this open mic, and he's like, I've found my next artist. And you see him, like, she's performing all just up there with her guitar, and then it's like he sees a piano part and a cello part and a drum part, and you just like see these instruments that happen to be surrounding her kind of pick up and fill in her song.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't think I've seen that, but it sounds...
It's honestly, it's a pretty cheesy. It's not the greatest movie. It's fun for like, a date night entertainment kind of thing. But what I thought was fascinating about that whole movie, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's the only good reason to even talk about this movie, in my opinion, outside of that. I mean, the cast is pretty good. But so they record, the way that he kind of gets his thing going is that they record, like, it takes place in New York. They incorporate the sounds of New York, so they record outside.
Oh.
Or they'll record on the subway platform. Or they'll record in an alleyway. or I'm just like, okay, now I finally got something from this movie. That's pretty neat.
Yes, that is sick.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, that's something I've multiple times lived right by train tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Right by train tracks. So it's fun whenever I am, like, in the zone and I'm, like, recording something. I'll hear a train coming and I'll just, like, pop open the window and just try to get some noise just to see how I could, like, incorporate that somehow.
Now, I haven't thought about it that way, but I grew up around train tracks as well, and it feels like every house I've ever lived in has been near train tracks of some sort, and so it's almost like a comforting feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even now, I honestly have no idea where the train is now, but I can hear it, and it's just like, all right, yeah, all right, I dig that. It feels like home. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's. Okay, I got the right camera on. Let's take a break here and listen to a couple of your tracks. What's the first song that you're going to play for us?
The first song is called Plan B, which is off of Order of Importance that I put out last year, and it's a sad one.
It's a sad one. All right. Well, that is fair enough. And so let's. Before we get into Plan B, I'm usually much better with this transition. But this is all going to stay in the show. That's what I love about it, just because I like to keep everything off the cuff. This segment is brought to you by Indianapolis Independent Entertainment. IIE LLC aims to help local DIY artists, freelancers, and businesses within Indianapolis by establishing a network of creatives who can connect with each other to generate more paying opportunities. Their goal is to eliminate some of the intimidating barriers within the entertainment industry and expand the local art and music scenes in Indianapolis. Interested individuals can learn more about IIE by visiting their website, www.indyent.com. That's INDYINDIEENT.com, and fill out a free application to discuss how you and IIE can redefine making it together. And we will be right back after hearing Plan B from Awetree.
I wore your hat without permission. I wore your shirt because you kissed me in it. I keep on feeding my demons, just enough to keep them alive. I don't know why. Have the hat back, that's fine. I'm keeping the shirt, though, that's mine. If you're not keeping me warm tonight, tell me why would I fight? But what doesn't kill me will keep on trying. You cut me back into submission. My song's inside your head, the first incision. You keep on feeding me reasons. You can't ever give me the time. Now I know why. What was plan A? that's fine. I'm keeping the shirt, though, that's mine. Yeah. I went back in time 3 whole hours just to miss you more. It's fine, I realize it's a new power I didn't have before. Losing all confidence is a consequence of my behavior. Your comfort like sustenance, like you were doing me a favor. And I just wanna touch your face. It's almost like the 80s knows our names, and I can see them, but you're just too far away. And I can feel you, but you're just too far away. I went back in time to see what was wrong with me. If you can't make up your mind, please just tell me why. The devil within me was right where you said he'd be. I could say the same for you. Oh, I miss your touch. I miss your touch. I miss what was. I miss your touch. Yeah.
And this segment was brought to you by the Engine Room Recording Company, located in Broad Ripple Village, just north of downtown Indianapolis, and they specialize in making your projects go. Podcasters, bands, audiobookers, rappers, singers, songwriters, and everyone in between, the Engine Room Recording Company has the experience, the engineers, the equipment, and the environment to fuel your projects. Check out Broad Ripple's recording studio by visiting for more information on their services, artists they've recorded, and gear they have at engineroomrecordingcompany.com. And be sure to visit their Instagram page by searching up at Engine Room Recording Co. And welcome back. We just heard a couple of great songs, Plan B and Pleiades from Awetree. Thank you again for being on the show this week. I am excited to have you, and especially with your blend and brand of music. Let's talk about these songs a bit. What you said that Plan B is a sad song. It sounds like it's a bit of a breakup songs, maybe but there's probably a little bit more there.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like a lot of my songs kind of do revolve around like one specific maybe person and scenario. Plan B is kind of like more capturing a time in my life that involves like multiple interactions. I was actually very briefly married and then got a divorce, and so it was like that roller coaster of emotions and kind of my reaction. Like, I'd been in a relationship all through the time of like dating apps and stuff coming out, so I'd like never really like casually dated or been a part of that in any way, and so it was kind of just being a very emotionally vulnerable person that was kind of trying to like cope with with like a life-changing experience.
Sure. No, that sounds kind of like a dramatic life change.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so Pleiades, you're working with Greek words now.
Yes.
Where does Pleiades come from?
So this is a part of the concept like EP I was telling you about. So the whole story with Pleiades is it's a constellation, or it's also known as like the Seven Sisters, who were like turned into stars to like be protected from, I think, Orion, I believe is the story. They're like kids of Atlas or something. But basically, I also saw that star cluster when I got to go out to Oregon for a bit, and I was doing some camping. And
so cool.
I was like, I was by myself. My friend had some property out there, so it's like, I'm gonna have kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it my eat, pray, love, but I was just like, I'm gonna camp in the woods by myself for a bit in Oregon.
Sure, and that could be so revitalizing and inspirational. So I mean,
it was great, except it was during a season where you can have fires because it's like dangerous to have fires. So being left alone to my thoughts with no fire, didn't realize how much fire was like distracts you when you're in those situations. And so I wrote this song kind of about being far away for the first time, and I'd never really been in like a different time zone than like people I love, and I've never spent that much time by myself doing stuff like that. So that song is kind of me realizing sort of some of my weaknesses, but also some of my new strengths from that.
That's fascinating. Well, thank you for sharing about those songs. Now, I want to kind of backtrack a bit and talk about your live experience. What has it been like playing in Indianapolis? Because it feels like you've been, for whether it's a solo uke act or even with it as a band, it feels like, or not feels like, it sounds like you're playing some places that aren't typical for your brand of music. So I mean, like to play the Hoosier Dome or Healer, it's not where or even as we were talking off air, the Melody, all great places to play, great venues, and you've played there as solo acts.
Yeah, I feel, especially like reflecting on it, because when you're starting to do shows, there's just like sort of this, like, I don't want to say blind faith or blind energy, but you're just kind of rolling with the punches. Anything you can get, you're just like happy about it. But when I look back, I'm like, I was very much just any scene. If I just happened to kind of try to present myself there, it was just like very welcoming of me.
Awesome.
And I'm very fortunate in that aspect, because like I remember when Kara and I had done our first open mic at Sam Ash, there was like this nouveau that just happened to be like the top places in Indy to do an open mic, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is serendipitous. We gotta like, look into this. And I don't know, I saw all these venues, and I was like, I could never play any of these venues because this isn't the right sound. But I don't know, eventually you just you network and you meet people. And I mean, especially coming from the art world and not being super immersed in the music scene at first, it was just kind of an interesting transition. But you meet people who are like, I like what you're doing, you can get on our show, and then from there, it just kind of takes off. Like I was saying before, I think there is sort of this, like my idea of being sandwiched between like a heavy band and then like something like more like pop punk or something. It's like, no one's gonna dig this. I'm so surprised that they want me here, and then people are so receptive. So that's just, I don't know, that's what I really love about indie, is that I think like where we might not always all collaborate as much as we potentially could, we're all really like welcoming of each other. I feel, from my experience, I guess I can't speak for everybody. But.
No, sure, no, but that is a wonderful experience to experience. I mean, that's to kind of get that reaction, because I'm guessing your sound, I'm guessing, is fairly unique in the city. I don't imagine that there are a lot of uke-based acts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you hear about people like going off to like Nashville or something or New York and being like, oh man, I gotta turn around and come home because it's like too many other things. And like I don't know if that's just kind of maybe I'm just comfortable here because like right now I don't know, I would love it to see like more of it for sure, but I think that has maybe benefited me that I'm a little bit of a unique take on it, I guess, because I can be plugged in and I do maybe some more like some interesting things with it that aren't always done.
Well, that's cool. So how often do you find yourself playing out, and do you have any shows coming up?
Right now, I don't have anything coming up. I'm mostly focusing on trying to get my recording process done.
Sure.
It's also been a big year as far as, like, my sister's pregnant with twins and my best friend's getting married, and it is all happening kind of at once. So I, like, earlier on this year, I was like, this is kind of a good opportunity since I'm recording anyway to just, like, kind of step back from the show part. Plus, last year, I was doing like a couple shows a month starting in March when I did my album release. And what was wild about that was the only show I booked was my album release.
Oh, really?
And then everything else, I got like I said, 2 shows a month up until maybe like October or November, and they were all just things that I like was asked to be on.
That is awesome.
I was so happy.
Yeah, people are really receptive to your music.
Yeah, it's nice. I really like it. Every time, like, if anybody listening has ever asked me to do anything, I really appreciate it. It has helped so much, because I get so stressed. I do pretty much all of, like, everything by myself. It's,
all
like,
the booking
as DIY as it gets. And, like, I was talking to Tom about this before. It's, like, it's equal parts, like, very DIY, but also it takes a village. But in the sense that it's just, like, people who can tell that I maybe need a hand and like feel like they can offer something. Like I don't know.
Well, let's change gears again, because I love hearing about your experience with Indianapolis and playing out. That's just so much. That's a lot of fun. But you've been talking about kind of elliptically about your forthcoming EP. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And how long have you been working on it, and what's your theme feel for this one?
So this is like the Feast Alone Songs About God's concept.
Yeah.
I did already. The first song that was sort of written for this is called Aries, and I actually put that as my NPR Tiny Desk contest. They do that every year. I've been doing that. I think I've missed like maybe 1 or 2 years, but I've done most. I think I've done it like 6 times.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. I like having something to kind of be a hard deadline for myself and that's consistent. But I put that song out for that submission, and that's kind of what sparked it. Was like it might have to do with the pandemic. Sorry to put this in a place and time, but
sure. No, yeah.
But I wrote.
Trust me, the pandemic
song.
is still pulling stuff, even though we're sort of through it. I mean, it's still pulling stuff out of people.
During that time, I feel like everybody got such. If you already had anxiety, I mean, it was going to be through the roof. Most people had never had it before started getting it, you know. And I got this really intense anxiety about all of my friends dying and being alone, like to have to cope with that all by myself. Like that would just be a reoccurring, like not fear of me dying, but fear of me like not having any friends anymore and having to like be sad about that. So that was kind of that turned into like the first song I wrote on my loop, like with my loop feature on my pedal, and it was like high energy, something a little bit different than what I'd been writing before, still very honest, but I kind of thought about it in the like, hey, Aries, the god of war, he probably didn't like getting close to anybody, you know? Like, if I were him, I would be at arm's length from everyone. Everyone's gonna die around you except you. So that was kind of where I took it. And then I started to think about like some of the other songs that I had the same kind of feeling of like, I'm writing this even though I don't want to be thinking about it. 'Cause it's not like, it's heavy stuff to think about, you know? So that's what like, while this EP is gonna have some room to be have some like interpretation and be like pulling in some other aspects. It's honestly maybe more honest than I've been in some of my other.
Really? Wow.
Just because of how I feel like it's like my deep fears just being like, okay, we're just gonna lay this out on the table and play with it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. That sounds deep, and again, that whole concept of of playing with the gods and everything else. I love it. I love what you're doing with that. What's the timetable you think for having something like this released?
I don't know. So what really is hard right now is that like everybody's pushing singles. I don't really like to follow rules with that.
Yeah,
not that I don't have any reason to.
Sure.
I feel like I'm not a big like get on TikTok and like pretend I'm singing my new song. Not that there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's disingenuous to who I am when my project is already so personal that I'm just like I just have to follow through with doing this how I want to. So I love albums. I love listening to a full album to hear what they're trying to do. I still like singles and stuff, but I do want to maybe try to put out one song from the EP before the end of the year. I originally wanted to do August, but man, that creeps up on me so fast.
No, it does. It does.
So and then maybe early next year for the entire thing.
Yeah. Well, as one wise person once told me, and it was meant to be encouragement, but it kind of can sound a bit jerkish. No one's waiting for it.
Yeah.
And
I love that attitude, honestly.
But it's true. We're the ones who establish these artificial deadlines, and we keep on saying, "Oh yeah, something's coming out," and I fall prey to that all the time, saying that, "Oh, this is coming out, and it's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be coming out soon," and time creeps up on you, and stuff gets passed, and when you hear that, no one's waiting for this. You're like, "Ouch!" But you're right. No one is. It's so true.
And they'll listen when it comes out. Like that's the thing, and it almost like because I do that all the time. I'm like, recently whenever I've gotten promos done, and I was just like really antsy to post them. I'm just like, I am working on something, and that's about where I leave it.
Yeah.
I'm still here, but nobody really needs a reminder.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It gets hard again being like totally pretty solo. Like I enjoy having the guys that I play with sometimes like for that emotional support, but at the end of the day I'm like I am the person who cares about this the most, so like the care that I put into it is the only way it's gonna come out. And that's all I really care about is just giving it the time that I feel like it needs, because I feel like my first audience is always myself. If I like it, then somebody else out there is gonna like it. So like, it really just has to get past that threshold.
Sure. Well, and at the end of the day, we're writing music for ourselves, but we know that there are other people out there who could feel the same way. So our music will find its audience.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way.
I'm still working on that a little bit.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah, one final thing that I kind of want to get to is I've noticed you have some very interesting tattoos.
Yeah.
And you have one of Betty Boop.
Yes.
And that's especially cool. So I always have to imagine that when you put art on yourself, there's a story behind it. What's the story behind Betty Boop?
So I was really close with my grandma Lou. She had a collection of Betty Boop figurines. It's actually funny. She would complain to me that she's like, people keep getting me Betty Boop stuff. I'm like, you kind of set the tone for that, don't you think? But yeah, so when she passed, I wanted to get something to remember her by, and one of her figurines was a singer, and so I thought that was very fitting.
That is very fitting
to remember her by. Yeah.
Oh, I love that story. That's fascinating and fun, and it's a cool, unique tattoo because you don't find a lot of people these days who actually know who Betty Boop is.
Yeah, and another interesting thing. So like, not a lot of my family is not like super music focused. They're like, my family's good at like singers and stuff, but
sure.
They're also anxious like me. But my grandma, she actually ended up getting dementia, and she had mentioned like previously in my life that she had like played violin in Lafayette before at like Purdue one time, but then we were at a family function when she already had like lost most of her memory, and she just sat at a piano and just started playing it. I had no idea she knew how to play the piano.
Oh, wow.
It was wild. We were all kind of floored. Like, I'm sure somebody, it was like at Thanksgiving or something one year, and I'm sure some of the other family members had known she did, I'm sure, but yeah, it was just very wild. So it helped, I don't know, it's just something where, like, a lot of things I learned about her later on, I'm, like, feel very connected to her in that way, so.
Well, that's really neat, and to have that kind of connection. Well, I ask all of my guests, this is kind of as like a final question, is there anything that we've missed? Because I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And I mean, is there anything about your music or gigs coming up, albums? I know you say you want to have something by the end of the year. Nothing is playing currently, but like, where can they find you on socials, or, you know, where? Oh, yeah. What any other thing that you happen to want to bring up or talk about?
You know, you can follow me on, I do a lot of my stuff on Instagram as far as, like, sharing some of the personal side of things and playing some covers and tunes. I'm at Awetree. I also do post some on TikTok, mostly just, like, cover songs and stuff. I'm Awetree Music there. And I am really excited about the stuff that I'm working on, so even though I don't have a deadline yet, please keep up, because I think you'll like it.
And it should be noted that it is, because I made this mistake earlier, it is Awetree.
Yes. Thank you
for
pointing that out.
Tree.
Yeah, Tree.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I made that mistake earlier. I was like, oh, shoot, how does she... And I used it there because there's an account without an E, and I accidentally put it without an E.
Oh, that's funny.
So, or without the first E, not the second two E's. But
Audrey.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a minute, is this right? No, I should go check. Anyway, so that's fantastic. Thank you again for being on the show.
Yes, thank you.
You're so welcome. Check out Audrey's music. She's really fantastic. She has a very unique sound, very unique to Indianapolis. And thank you for being part of the music community here, and for doing all that you're doing. That's going to do it for us. Our next show will be in July. I am taking next week off, just as an FYI. Vacation summons. So we will be returning in July. And thank you again, Audrey, for being on. And we'll see you guys again next time. Bye.